While we are frantically rushing to safeguard our digital assets and combat threat actors in the digital landscape, it almost seems to slip our mind that there is a possibility of a digital peace. But as strange as that term sounds, thinking about it leads to more fascinating questions. Questions like, is digital peace just the absence of digital threats? And to discuss this in depth, we have Dr. Durga Prasad Dube, Senior Vice President at Reliance Industry Limited, joining us. Dr. Dube, thanks for plugging in.
Thank you for giving me a chance.
Dr. Dube, what is the concept of cyber peace and what exactly does that constitute? Is it just the absence of a cyber war, or is there more to this?
Yeah, a very good question. So definitely, for sure, cyber peace is something you can safely call that if there is no war, there is a peace. But I would say that it's a very negative way of defining cyber peace. This is a very contrastive definition of cyber peace. Of course, as you know, this war and peace are the two sides of the same coin. It is more vividly and very lucidly described in a very famous epic of Leo Tolstoy. That's War and Peace, which is written in 1860, something like that. So, but I would rather say that all what we should think in a very positive way. So more than the absence of the war, it is actually the ability to solve a war or solve a conflict in a peaceful way is actually a peace. In a positive connotation, peace signifies, irrespective of whether it is cyber or otherwise, it signifies a condition of good management, orderly resolution of conflicts, harmony associated with mature relationship, gentleness and love, which is very clearly defined by Leo Tolstoy in the same War and Peace. And as I told you again, let me again emphasize on that the concept of peace is equally applies to both cyber world and also the physical world. Literally, it applies. It all depends on how you take the examples of whatever happened to maintain peace in the physical world and try to apply into this cyber world, which is little more complex.
Now, given the current context when everybody is talking about cyber war, what is your opinion on the seriousness of this matter? Is cyber war something that's already happening, or is it something that's imminent? How do you read this?
Yeah, you're right. Cyber war is a very profusely used word. I would rather say that it is very misused or very loosely used word today, because war is something which is defined. It's not something that we are defining it today. It's very clearly defining. It is accepted internationally, and there is a UN charter for what is called war. All sort of things are there. So you may think of there could be deliberation of defining cyber war in a different way, but to define war before defining what is cyber war, then there is a scope for misusing the word war. And let me just tell you, there is a just war theory, which is called a jus ad bellum theory, which is accepted as a UN charter, which is called just war theory, or what is called a war. The principle of war are, there are a couple of things. I don't want to say so many things, but a couple of things like war must be waged with the right intention and just cause. There has to be a probability of success. There has to be boundary for defining the war, all sort of things. If you look at those principles, and again, there is something that war has to be declared by a legitimate authority. If you really look at all those things and try to apply strictly to the cyber world, it doesn't fit into those things. So if it doesn't fit into those things, there is a scope for misusing. And I will give an example of how it can be misused. Look at all of us have been talking, not only you, me, the entire industry has been talking that there is already a cyber war or cyber war is very imminent. Take an example of NotPetya, what has happened. Outwardly, if you see it, it's a state-sponsored attack. But if you look at what has happened after that, there are instances of companies, those who have taken an insurance policy and they have suffered because of this attack. And then when they went to the insurance company saying that they should get cover for those whatever has happened to them, insurance company safely told that act of God, an act of war, is excluded from the insurance. So it is something which is coming from the blue, because we as a corporations, we don't know. Everybody is talking about war. We are also talking about war. We don't know the repercussion of that. I am not going to the semantics of whether you call it a war or otherwise. What I'm only saying is, the moment you call it war, which is a very defined term, then there is always a scope for misusing that word. So for the timing, till we really define what is cyber war, I think that let us call it a cyber conflict. It solves both the purposes. It solves the purposes of not getting into those legal things or what I said, that the misuse kind of things. And at the same time, it's a very positive note. So why we should call war? Let's call cyber conflict.
Dr. Dube, why do you call it a cyber conflict and not a cyber war? Wouldn't the state-sponsored conflicts be called an act of cyber war?
So look at state-sponsored attacks. So when you call it state-sponsored attack, you have done investigations and you have found with sufficient evidences that it is a state-sponsored attack. But what actually happens? State is not involved in this attack. Who are involved is these mercenaries, these people who are these mediators. I mean, they actually work for the state to attack another state. So here, if you really go and tell I'm again going to the same narrative that if we are getting into the legal term of war, then it can be safely told that this is not a war, because you will not find anywhere any trace of the sovereign per se, which it will always be used by a third party. Always a third party versus a third party, but it is you call it a state-sponsored attack. And I am not saying that it is not a state-sponsored attack. What I am saying is you cannot call it a war. If you call it a war, you are into a problem. And again, the same thing, that nothing in the war, whatever the justifiable theory and all such, this doesn't strictly get applied to these state-sponsored attacks. You can call it attack, you can call it conflict, but I don't think that you should call it war at this point in time.
So how do you suggest we reduce these cyber conflicts?
I think the most important thing is we should try to regulate the cyber commons. So there are a lot of cyber commons. I would safely give the example of internet. The current state of internet, in a very similar way, it's a frontier area in the Wild West. There is absence of regulations, quick emergence of new ways to earn money, and the fact that the most effective security for the participant, that doesn't come from the state, it comes from private organizations. And when there is a lack of regulations or there is weak regulations, everybody try to take advantage out of it. So in my opinion, the first thing what we should do is we should have ways to regulate these cyber commons. I'm not saying that there is absolutely no governance or that there is absolutely no oversight. There are a couple of oversight and governance there, but it has to be very strict enough. And I think that is the root cause of the conflict. If we're able to regulate the cyber commons is not only internet. There are so many commons which we are using. Even the social media are cyber commons. We are using Facebook, we are using all social media. They are also cyber commons. So we should have some ways to, some kind of an oversight, some kind of know your customer we have in bank. You should have a know your user, something like that. I'm not trying to give prescriptions here. But what I'm trying to say that there are various cyber commons. Cyber commons are they have stood the test of the time. They are doing a great job. They are being used profusely, but the cyber conflicts are happening because of those cyber commons are not properly regulated. So the first point where you should start really thinking that we should have peace is really trying to control or trying to regulate these cyber commons.
And according to you, Dr. Dube, what are the key elements of cyber peace and what are the broad ways in which this can be achieved?
So I told you about the regulations. So let me put it again, few abstract thoughts, whatever in my mind. It's one thing like you have to have a global norm for ethical behavior on the internet. Maybe an UN charter, like there is an UN charter on sustainable development. See, all of us can try to have a global charter on ethical behavior on the internet. So let me tell you one point here. If internet is so insecure, and internet is so, what I call it, not regulated, then why are not we getting hacked every day? The reason is that's something which is helping us. It's a very, very interesting to note that while this internet can be actually used, these hackers, they use the same internet to hack others. So if they try to create a problem in the internet and internet goes down, their work also cannot happen. So it is like all of us are sitting on the same tree. We and the adversaries, all of us are sitting on the same tree. So doing a harm to the tree, so everybody will fall down. So that is why there is some sort of solace or something like that done in the internet. But what I'm trying to say is that we should have a global norm or ethical behavior on the internet. Once you do it for internationally, it doesn't work because implementing international laws in every state is very difficult. So we should have a state, every state should also enact their laws in the line of the global norm. And this ethical behavior on the internet has to be a course curriculum everywhere, starting from the lower school. That is where I think that organizations like all social forums, all community organizations, they can really help to have a course curriculum starting from the lower school on the ethical behavior on the internet. And every policy, every technology which is coming to the cyber world should comply to the principles of cyber peace. So here you have to define broad principle of cyber peace. I can give you an example of when this happiness thing happened. So Bhutan was the only country, they started something called happiness index. And any project which happens in Bhutan or any technology which goes to the Bhutan, they have to comply to the happiness index. So the same way, anything which is getting implemented in the cyberspace has to comply. It could be very simple 4-5 points, but there has to be something, we may call it a cyber peace index, and all these policy technologies should comply to this principle of cyber peace index. And all our effort, whatever effort we are talking, is for responsible way of behaving in the cyberspace, and also doing a confidence building in the cyberspace is very important. Once you have that confidence building in the cyberspace, then you will be nearer to having a real peace in the cyberspace. I think these are the broad points I can at least come to my mind at this point in time.
So given this, what are the current challenges to attaining cyber peace in the current scenario?
So the biggest challenge is there are a lot of information explosion which is happening today. The world is becoming a global village. Attack surface is increasing like anything. Dark web is used for so many things, including not only drug trafficking, but armed trafficking. So the most important is attribution. So attributing a threat in a cyber is very difficult. You cannot, it is not as in case of physical world, it is not that very difficult to attribute a threat, but in cyber attribution becomes a very difficult. It's a challenge because somebody sitting in one place using a cyber proxies to do attacks. It's very difficult to really know the identity of that persona. And as I told you also, very difficult to implement international law unless states are very aligned to the international laws. And another thing which is very close to my heart is today, the technologies which you are using, sometimes they are very discrete. So we have maybe having 20-30 controls which may be working in one systems, and all 20-30 controls are discrete controls. So there is no coordinated action which is happening. So interoperability among technologies is a big challenge. If one control is able to understand the other control and to complement the other control, we can actually convert the cyber security into cyber immunity. This is exactly happened into the immune system of the body. All the controls in a body, they talk to each other and they do a coordinated action. So today in cyber world, if there is an interoperability of all these controls, we solve so many things. Actually, we kill so many birds in one stone. Attribution becomes very easier if the controls, they talk to each other. For us, the biggest problem is our controls are discrete and they don't talk to each other. So we should really try to have some kind of a framework, making sure that all our controls are talking to each other. I think these are the broad constraints of implementing cyber peace.
Dr. Dube, the push for cyber peace is growing worldwide amongst all key stakeholders, including the CISO community. And in your opinion, how and in what ways can CISOs help contribute to the cause and become cyber peace warriors?
Yeah. You said a very good word, cyber peace warrior. Even next time, you should start giving a award on the Cyber Peace Warrior Award to the best CISO who actually does a lot of work in raising cyber peace. So cyber peace for both for the CISO community and for CISOs, I think there are so many things they can do. One thing which comes to my mind that they should think that although technology is very important, they should not miss the forest for the trees. Awareness, the people contact is very important. So raising awareness not only in the organizations but outside also, it should become a societal responsibility of everybody. While you are raising an awareness, to make this cyber world with an objective of making this cyber world as a beautiful place to live. So for this cyber world, people are getting scared. In sometimes if something happens, if somebody gets phished and somebody loses money or somebody gets cyber bullied, then after that they sometimes don't use technology, which is more dangerous. So all our mission should be make people profusely use technology, at the same time become a secure user. And for that reason, raising awareness is not saying them make your password complex. Raising awareness is beyond making password complex. It is actually making them feel that cyber world is another world like a physical world, where all of us has to remain peacefully, and to remain peacefully you have to follow certain rules, and these rules are this. So that has to be very clearly defined, and CISO being in the practice, they know it better and they will be accepted also well in the society. So I think CISOs have a societal role in going to different places and raising this awareness of how to live peacefully in this cyber world. That is the first point. The second point is, I am very optimistic that if we have some kind of a compact capsule program which you can really go and teach in the school, and really make government also make it mandatory in schools that we should teach students about basic disciplines was what one needs to follow or to remain peaceful in this cyber world. Because if you don't start this at this point in time, then it will be, I think in my opinion, it will be totally delayed. Then we'll have no option in really thinking that how to define cyber war. I'm very scared that I don't want to go there. We should not go there, that how to define cyber war, because we don't want to be there. We will rather talk about cyber peace, do more, become evangelist in promoting cyber peace, rather going and telling that we should define what is cyber war. So I only wish that should not come.
And that's for something radically different today for us to think and deliberate over. Dr. Dube, it's been an absolute pleasure to listen to you today, and we look forward to having you join us on more podcasts.
Yeah, you're welcome, sir. You're welcome.